Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today I have three very special guests. This has been a long time in the making to talk about one of the hottest topics in the world of Cardano, and that is staking, delegation, and stake pools. So I have Pratesh, Shweta, and Jeff, all stake pool operators. They're here to lay down the law and help us figure out what's going on with staking. So all of you guys, thanks so much for joining. I'd love if you guys could get a quick intro in for folks that are watching. Pratesh, you want to kick it off?
Sure. Yeah, Hashoshi, thanks so much, man. I know it's been a while since we last chatted, but just to see the amount of growth that's been happening with the community. So really glad to be back. I've got the channel Kaizen Crypto. You can check us out. Also, stake pool is KAIZN, KAIZN.
Awesome. Shweta?
Okay. So first of all, thank you, Hashoshi, for having me here. So for those who do not know me, there would be a lot of people who don't know me. So I'm Shweta. I'm running kBLOCKS. My ticker is Block, and I am an engineer by profession. So basically, I come from a town, Jhansi, in India, and currently I'm working as a technical lead for Accenture in Denmark.
Beautiful, beautiful. And last but not least, Jeff, my man.
Hey, yeah, appreciate the insight or the invite rather. I'm Jeff, also known as Crypto Simp on social media. I also run the Swag Stake Pool, and yeah, I'm really excited to be on the channel and discuss Cardano staking and everything that's going on with the ecosystem.
Awesome, awesome. Well, of course, thanks so much for everybody that's watching, and thank you to you three for joining. I think the first place that we should start at the very, very basic level. What is this new Shelley upgrade or Shelley, development release to mainnet? What does this mean for someone who owns ADA, is in the Cardano ecosystem, maybe has a wallet? How do they start getting involved in proof of stake, and what role do you play as a stake pool operator?
I mean, yeah, I can go ahead and kick it off. So essentially, as a stake pool operator, and now that we've gone in from the Byron era and not into the Shelley era, we are starting to take over, essentially as stake pool operators, we're starting to take over control of the network and start to mint the blocks from the previous era where IOG, Input Output Global, was doing a lot of the producing of blocks rather. And as we move into that phase or further into the phase, we'll have a lot more stake pool operators minting the blocks and decentralizing the network. So that's essentially the first step in the Shelley phase. Excuse me.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess it's fair to say then that the Shelley phase is all about giving the power to mint blocks and to really govern the network into the hands of the community. And so as stake pool operators, you're sort of the conduit by which, everyday ADA holders can participate in block making. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in the process of you staking your ADA, you're supporting the network with these nodes. And the more as these nodes come online, and we have about 1,100 online right now, willing and ready to produce blocks, with the staking aspect involved in it now, as they collect or as that more ADA is associated with these stake pools, that gives them a higher probability to mint the blocks and partake in this decentralized ecosystem.
Got it. So Shweta, I wanted to direct this to you really quickly. As a stake pool operator, you're obviously getting ADA delegated to your pool, and by that hand, you are more or less likely to be able to mint a block. And when you mint a block as a pool, the folks who delegate to you get rewards. Can you talk a little bit about how you can tune your pool to be more likely to mint a block?
Yeah. So the major factor that contributes to a pool minting a block is the stake. So the more the stake, the more likely the pool is likely to mint a block. But that being said, since Cardano uses Ouroboros protocol, it does not distinguish between pools, and as long as you have a decent stake, you are likely to mint a block. But it's just a matter of time when and how you are going to mint. And another important thing to note for stake pool operators is that you need to ensure that your block producing node is up and running, and also your relay when you are elected to mint a block. because you don't want to disappoint Ouroboros.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is an element of, you are that direct line of communication between, regular ADA holders and the rest of the network, and starting to govern that. And you're earning them rewards, obviously. They wouldn't delegate to you otherwise. And so, Pritesh, can you walk the folks in the audience and me through what the technical overhead, like what do you have to do to run a stake pool? Because I think people see this, the user experience side of it, but they may not understand what goes into doing that on the back end.
Yeah, there's a couple ways you can do it. Really no right or wrong way, but for me personally, I'm using a bare metal server. And so you just have a computer that's running the software for Cardano node. It's maintaining uptime of about 100%, 24/7. It's online. Whenever you're selected to mint that block, if you're able to produce that block, that's how you get those rewards. As far as the technical acumen, I don't have programming experience, just to be fully transparent. Really, the best thing that I would recommend is if you have some type of familiarity with a command line, like syntaxes for Linux, it's definitely going to help out. Also, if you're familiar with networking, how to forward a port or set up a firewall, those are definitely going to help out.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, and I think there's a lot of good instructions out there. Shweta, go ahead.
So sorry. Just to add, your Pritesh mentioned perfectly. So Cardano recently launched a stake pool school. So if you're a noob, Cardano noob, then you can go and join that school. They have a really good guide for a non-technical person to follow through and set their stake pool up and running.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I can imagine. No, don't worry about it. I can imagine that, for IOHK, for the Cardano, like the core team, the, top of mind goal is to get as many unique people running pools and delegating their ADA as possible, because that obviously contributes to a higher level of security in the network. It helps keep, cartels from forming and, people getting, too big, which in proof of stake, you talk about how long it took for Shelley to come out and people were frustrated. But one of the biggest challenges is making proof of stake provably secure, because obviously wealth has a tendency to pool in, small places with a few different players. And so the randomness that Shweta, you talked about before, is very important, where even if you're small, you still have a chance to mine a block or to mint a block. So Jeff, I wanted to turn it to you really quickly and ask, kind of what the onus was for you to start up a pool and what your experience was like doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't, unfortunately, get the opportunity to run in the ITN, life. So essentially, yep. I chose to stake, and I've been in the community for a while, but I chose to stake during the ITN, and when the after the friends and family testnet happened around June timeframe, I saw the opportunity for me to jump in head first, and so I kind of just submerged myself in the literature, the documentation that Cardano was putting out, jumped into the Telegram, the work group Telegram that a lot of the community was in, and just gauged and see if this was something that was feasible for me with my background, and it was, and they welcomed me with open arms, and I haven't looked back since. And we're doing pretty well right now. We're just getting started, but I'm really excited about a lot of the stuff that's going on. And to what Shweta was saying, there's a lot of resources out there for anyone that's looking into becoming a stake pool operator currently. So definitely reach out to either the three of us, or somebody else within the community, because it's anybody, like you said, anybody has the opportunity to come in. It's definitely going to be some work, but it's doable.
Absolutely. And Shweta, I would pose the same question to you. What really drove you to start up a stake pool, and how did you get involved in that? Did you participate in the incentivized testnet?
Yeah, so I started learning about Cardano earlier this year because I heard a couple of my colleagues talking about it, and they were referring to it as a Google of blockchain. So I was like, okay, I need to know about it. So then I read about Cardano. The vision really hit me hard. I was like, wow, this is something that can change the world. And at least given my background, I can definitely contribute to it. So I bought some ADA. Then I thought, okay, now that I'm a part of the ecosystem, I might as well do something.
Mm-hmm.
So I read the initial GitHub scripts that were launched by Cardano, and that seemed doable. So I just thought of giving it a try. But I wasn't on ITN because I was late to the party. But then I was there from Haskell testnet, and ever since then.
Awesome. Awesome. I mean, I think that the way that it was rolled out was great in the sense that it gave people a lot of time to figure it all out. And while it was moving quickly from, updates and changes and rolling changes made to the core code and some of the clients that you had access to, there was plenty of time for folks like Pritesh to work with the community, get people involved. We had a chat during that period of time, and there are plenty of other folks like the Cardano Effect guys and Rick McCracken specifically, who most people in the Cardano ecosystem know, that did a great job of teaching people how to get started and how to participate at every level. And
yeah,
I think
if I could, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If I could touch on that, I remember back during those days, it's like just talking about, oh man, what is it going to be like when we actually see this actually rolled out on mainnet? The ITN was quite an experience. I was actually running on a little Rock Pi, just a little single board computer. So that was fun. And, one of the biggest differences now we can see with the software, it's so much more stable. It's very smooth.
Definitely. And I think, continuing on that thread, Pritesh, like what has your experience been from a stake pool perspective in terms of how, I'm not going to say how easy it is, but how stable it is, how comfortable you are with any, changes that might be made to the code base, and how much effort is it for you to run this pool?
It's a day job. Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's something that requires constant attention. Mm-hmm. As far as how confident I am with, upgrading the software, it's a very straightforward process. It's very seamless as it comes to just upgrading the node. Biggest thing is going to be uptime, mm-hmm. having a way, I don't know if you're running on a cloud or like a bare metal server, but just having some type of redundancy so that you can upgrade. Mm-hmm. Definitely something you have to consider.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, I think. I don't know if anyone else, here amongst you three has had this same experience, but, for me, I played around with, not even during Shelley, but earlier on, I was running nodes for different networks, Ethereum, Cardano during Byron era, et cetera, just to test in test nets. And my issue is I'm reliant on my home internet to do these things. If I'm running something bare metal on a server like you are, Pritesh, and I don't want to pay for cloud, I have Comcast and they're terrible, so it's like your uptime is going to be sacrificed in a way that you can't control. So I think those are things people need to think about too. If you're thinking about running a pool, what contingencies can you have in place for things that are out of your control, like your internet service provider,
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking to that, I wouldn't discourage anybody from running the bare metal server aspect, because there's a lot of guys in the community, specifically like Pritesh, as well as Rick McCracken, that have pretty elaborate setups. I think Rick once said that he has like dual fiber lines dedicated running directly to his house from it's insane. So it's doable, but you have to do it thoughtfully, right? Mm-hmm. And I hear you with the VPS, the virtual private server, the cloud service. I would say, look at all aspects before you kind of dive into one, and weigh out the disadvantages and advantages of both of them, and figure out what your level of risk is when you choose a platform if you wanted to invest in this.
Yeah, I completely agree, because personally for me, I just bought Microsoft Azure, two VMs on Microsoft Azure, and then get it started on it, because that saved some peace of mind. So I started with 2 and now I have 4. Because once you go into it, it's like a rabbit hole.
Definitely. Yeah, and I guess for someone that's on the other side, right? You're an ADA holder and you want to participate. You maybe don't have the, not even necessarily the wherewithal, because I think based on what we've heard from you, anyone could probably do this if you set your mind to it and you put some work in to get it set up. Maybe someone that doesn't have the time for the upkeep, or someone that doesn't want to undertake that. how would you go about, as just an ADA holder, what are the best ways and what's the process like to delegate to a stake pool like any of yours? And I'll obviously link those below too.
Okay, can I take this one?
Go for it.
Yeah. So because I have been asked quite a lot of questions from my delegators and I have been answering to them, so I have the answer ready.
Awesome.
So there are three factors that as a delegator one should look. Firstly, of course, the technical specification of the pool. You need to ensure that the pool that you are delegating to is up and running when they are allocated to mint a block. Then secondly, you need to check the pool margin, what is the pledge and how the pool performance is in the past epics, what is the return on stake, and thirdly, how the pool operator is giving back to the community. Because personally for me, it is very important given the vision of Cardano. You need to ensure that there are good people in the ecosystem who are willing to give back to the community and just not looking at the profits.
That totally makes sense. And so you started alluding to some of the metrics that you can look at when you're trying to, to delegate. And I do want to get there really quickly though. Pritesh, I'm just going to direct this to you relatively arbitrarily, I might add.
Sure.
I guess to me, there are a couple of options that you can, that you have to start delegating with the user interface. But from your perspective, what are the best ways for someone to do that from an app perspective? What do they need to get to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. I know you and I are both big proponents of security. So as far as security and being safe with your ADA, I recommend using the Daedalus wallet or the Yoroi wallet. Two great user interfaces. You'll be able to delegate to a stake pool using both of those wallets. You can even go with a Ledger hardware device. I do recommend that. Right now, Ledger is capable of working with Yoroi. Still waiting on Daedalus, but it should be available soon. Other than that, just make sure you're keeping control of your keys. That's the biggest thing.
Yep. And I love that you brought up hardware wallets or cold storage, because that is probably the question I get the most often on my channel when it comes to delegation is, hey, can I use my Nano hardware wallet to do this? And the answer is now yes, now that Yoroi is fully up to date with that. And so when let's say you're using the Yoroi mobile app, for example, and you've restored your seed phrase to the app, right? So you have your ADA ready to go.
Yes.
What's the process like for delegating then?
Okay. First, what I would suggest is, and I do have content available on the channel if you do want to check it out, kind of showing you how to convert a wallet from Byron to Shelley. With the Shelley wallets, now you'll have the functionality of delegating to a pool. It's very straightforward using the user interface for the wallets, whichever one you choose. But that's the first step. And then from there, like Shweta was saying, you just got to go through and see, the different metrics for the stake pools, like pool margins, pledge, all that stuff's really important. So just knowing what to look for, I would recommend, just checking out some videos. I know you got a lot of great videos too. But yeah, just trying to get informed and getting to know your stake pool operator.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I've noticed that, for you three especially, but there are plenty of other stake pool operators that are extremely active on Twitter and other forms as well, forms of social media, but especially Twitter, where you can actually really interact with someone and make your decisions based off of your interactions with them. So I'd highly recommend you do that. But Jeff, and then generally, Shweta and Pritesh, feel free to jump in, but can we start to drill down a little bit more on some of the metrics and some of the things that delegators should look out for? I guess explaining what those different metrics are, it's saturation, pledge, those sorts of things.
Yeah, so we can start with the pledge. This one still kind of gets people, wrapped around. But pledge is essentially a metric, essentially that the stake pool operator is associating this amount of ADA to his pool to secure the network, saying, hey, I am in good faith putting this amount of ADA to my stake pool, and I pledge this amount to continuously run this stake pool and secure the network. So that's kind of what pledge starts. That's pretty much the basis of what pledge is. And then you have a saturation point. So this is predicated pretty much on a couple of factors, where The saturation point is the level of total ADA in a stake pool until the rewards start becoming diminished. And what that means is, at right now, there's about 150 pools, which is the K parameter. We can go into that, but there's 150 pools that makes the network optimal, that stabilizes the network. At that threshold, there's about 207, 208 million total ADA, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but
Yeah, no, I think that's right.
okay, so about 207, 208 million total ADA that's able to stake with a certain stake pool, with any stake pool, until it becomes saturated. Once it becomes oversaturated, the protocol then starts to diminish the rewards, essentially decentralizing individuals from just centralizing to certain nodes. So it actually is built into the network to say, hey, you have now met the threshold for, we're no longer seeking decentralization, and you need to start divesting from this stake pool and looking to move elsewhere.
Got it. And so your pledge is really the actual operator on their own behalf putting up their own ADA to say, I'm pledging this to the network. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. And pledge comes in different sizes depending on the operator, but it's good faith as long as you're having that dialogue with the operator and they understand that hey, this is the amount of ADA that I'm putting up and I'm pledging to say that in good faith that this is how I'm securing the network. That's pretty much what pledge is. Got
it. So, Shweta, you started talking about it before, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to follow up on it. But that K value, right, the saturation value, we're starting to kind of get to the point that we understand this K value helps to measure saturation of a given pool or pools plural, and at which point you can start to, at a protocol level, reduce rewards to push people towards other pools that aren't as saturated. So awesome. Can you talk about what someone who is looking to delegate to a pool needs to look for in terms of K value? How can you find that, and how can you use that to your advantage in choosing?
Okay, so K value is the optimum number of stake pools that would be up and running in the Cardano ecosystem, and I think would be making profit and minting blocks at the balance rate. So now the vision of Cardano is that as in when we proceed towards decreasing D, we will have a more the K value will increase. So the number of stake pools that would be optimum in the ecosystem currently, I think, is around 150, but with time is going to increase, hopefully. So, but that's just an assumption at this point. Nothing is concrete. So, K value does not impact the delegators as such. As long as your pool is up and running and producing blocks, they are good to go.
Got it. Okay, so
more Cardano focused, if that makes sense.
So it's more of like a network ops focus. Okay, cool. So that makes a lot of sense. And then, Pritesh, if I'm someone who's trying to delegate, where do I go to start making decisions other than obviously, talking and engaging with the community and meeting stake pool operators, watching videos like this and finding stake pool operators to work with? How would I go to make that decision as to who I would delegate to? And then what do I need in terms of information? Do I need some ID or something to punch in?
Sure. Resources. I like pooltool.io. It's one of my favorites. Nice. Shout out to Papa Carp. Mike does an incredible job keeping up with that website. Also, ADA pools from the Cardanians. Both are community-driven websites which offer incredible information. If you are going to be looking to delegate to a pool, you might need the pool ID depending on which wallet that you're going to use. I know Daedalus has everything in the user interface, so really easy to do. As far as other resources, definitely check out the videos on YouTube, following stake pool operators on Twitter. I know all four of us are really engaged on Twitter. So just keeping up with the community.
And so I guess this is a general question to all of you, but, and you might each have a different perspective. Do you think that as an ADA delegator, you can make a significant return on investment as you know, someone who, I mean, obviously there are whales out there who have a ton of ADA, like we're talking tons, and of course you're gonna make more relative to somebody else, you know, relatively, but percentage wise, is it pretty fixed depending on, you know, who you're staking with or delegating to?
Yeah, I would say it'll average out over time. Ouroboros, it's kind of like a lottery system. And think of the amount of ADA that a stake pool has delegated. It's kind of like lottery tickets. The more lottery tickets that you get, the more likely you have a chance of minting a block. So yeah, as far as return, it's definitely, and of course not financial advice, you guys know that. But it's definitely, going to be better returns than keeping your money in a bank, let's say. But what we're seeing right now, just with the parameters set how they're at, it's about 5%. Definitely could change, but the rewards will average out over time.
Got it. And I think then, Shweta, from your perspective, if you're sitting there at 5%, what could change on the protocol side, whether it be the K value or other metrics from the protocol side that would, add to that reward or maybe drop that reward? Like how is that calculated in a sense?
I would say stake. Your active stake was definitely a contributing factor on your return on stake. And rest is all how, if you get selected by Ouroboros, how often you're getting selected. I cannot think of any other factor. If I'm missing anything, then please feel free to add.
Yeah, if I could jump in, I believe at the current state right now, we're seeing, a bit of a bump in terms of returns due to, I think we're around 47% total stake within the network. And so as that number starts to climb, we start seeing the returns, take a dip, just a slight dip, but it won't be, something significant. But right now, the early investors, if you will, are seeing a pretty decent return, somewhere around like we're saying 5.5-6% right now. But as we see, we start to climb total overall network around 60-70%. We'll probably start averaging around 4.5-5%.
Yeah, in which you look at some of these these projects out there that have like guaranteed interest, even crypto projects that aren't protocols, right? They're offering crazy interest levels. So I think people scoff at 4.5-5%, when in reality it's really good. I mean, if you have a semi guaranteed, and I say that with quotations because it's not guaranteed, but you have at least a semi average or consistent return like that, it's pretty good, to be honest.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at some of these other projects, you may be getting something significantly more, but like, what's the the time horizon on that? I can't tell you how long that's going to happen. If you actually look and do the research into Cardano, this system is built for decades, right? So decades from now, you're still receiving 5% essentially. That I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, that's okay, and that is a good point too, is that we are still, relative to the entire space that we're in, the crypto space, really early. We are like infancy in terms of the Cardano ecosystem, even in the Shelley era, and there's so much more to be built that this is really a foundational layer of all the other stuff that's to come. And so I wanted to touch on that a little bit, and I know this is a very staking focused or stake pool focused episode. But before we close out this session, I wanted to just briefly get thoughts from you about what's to come with Goguen, the next era, which brings what I think everybody's anticipating the most, and that is programmable logic on the blockchain. I hate the term smart contracts, but of course that's what I do for a living, so I'm stuck with it. What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, so we are really, really excited for Goguen. With that, we'll have an opportunity to build smart contracts. Sorry to use that term.
It's okay.
You can say dApps on Cardano blockchain. So personally, I am really looking forward to it, because one of my goals in helping out the community is to go back to India and build some dApps that would help in generating employment in India, and at the same time helping rural people who do not have access to banks, who cannot produce right identity to get loans from bank. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Amazing. What about you, Jeff? What are your thoughts about Goguen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to usher in a significant amount of excitement. People, you know, were pretty much anticipating Shelley, but I think, you know, a lot of people were sleeping on Goguen, because that's when the true building actually starts to take place, and a lot of, you know, adoption. That's when actual adoption is going to start taking place, when people can start, you know, building these applications that, you know, bring individuals into the ecosystem. So yeah, we definitely, our team definitely has a couple ideas we're starting to mull over and figuring out some things that we want to put together, and we're pretty excited to move forward in this next era.
Awesome. Fantastic. I agree. I think it's a huge new domain and a huge opportunity for a lot of people, you know, in the space. Pratesh, what about you, man? Are you thinking about getting your hands dirty and trying to pick up some Haskell, man?
Yeah, I was looking at Marlowe. I think
Okay.
I think I could work my way around there. I think that'd be fun. I'm also looking forward to Voltaire. Voltaire would be pretty awesome. You know, just being able to vote. I know just from watching videos from Charles, so he's going to be updating Cardano community probably at the end of September on some tentative dates for Goguen. So that's going to be exciting. But one thing that we're actually seeing right now in the community is a bit of an issue with some of these, I guess you could say the third arm, which is the Cardano Foundation. So it's going to be interesting to see, now that Cardano is like actually decentralized, having voting like with Voltaire and being able to step in as a community. So I'm excited about all of it.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of potential, even as Goguen comes into the mix, to start to bring governance, you know, governance contracts into even, you know, projects that start to spin up. And, you know, there are a lot of protocols that run critical components of governance using contracts that feed into the protocol itself. So I think that there's a lot of stuff that can happen, and it should be updates coming thick and fast from here on out. I think Shelley was the one that was going to take the longest as the foundation, and now these are, you know, roadblocks that are cleared for some of the newer stuff that goes on top.
Yes. Yep. Shelley was that first step. Now it's just going to be uphill from here.
Right on. Yep, absolutely. And I think that's about as good of a break as possible for this particular episode, lest we go another half hour to an hour and bridge into another topic, which we'll save for another episode. But I want to thank everybody that's watching for sticking around. I know spending a half an hour listening to people talk about stuff they're passionate about may not be the most interesting thing all the time. At least we try. But thank you so much, Pratesh, Shweta, Jeff, for joining, and we'll definitely do this again soon.
Yes. Thanks so much, man. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. No problem. And everyone, have a fantastic rest of your night, weekend, day, whatever it is, wherever you're watching. Cheers.
Nice.